Namaste and very good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to IAMI team for the opportunity to meet you all today. The theme of this conference, 2024, India Digital Summit, resonates well with Indian space sector. We have democratized, we are scaling up and monetizing. Of course, we are digitizing too. Let me share the execution plan for this session. We will give a quick recap of Indian space sector, followed by listening to the views from ma'am and sir, and then we will have one question from the audience and conclude. So to give a quick recap of Indian space program started in 1960s with humble beginning, and we have progressed during last 6 decades very well. Today, we live in space 4.0. What does this mean? An era where the space is stepping out from the cradle of the government into arm of private sector with academic participation. We need to remember one thing. We need both. That is, both cradle of the government and arms of private sector and academic participation. Congratulations to each one of you. Today we are one of the influential nation in this era. First spacefaring nation to land on the moon's south pole, successful interplanetary missions, Mangalyaan, Chandrayaan, heavy lifting launch vehicle, spanning application across Earth observation, navigation and communication, affordable services. While these are all on the technology and scientific advancements, in governance today, we are also on a path towards creating world's largest space tech ecosystem under the vision of Honorable Prime Minister. Last year, we witnessed success of Chandrayaan-3, Aditya, Gaganyaan Development Mission, OneWeb India Mission, and others. This year, we started with XPOSat, INSAT 3D, and missions like PSLV, GSLV with ISRO payloads, and Gaganyaan test launches, Agniban, Vikram, etc. are lined up. What's our next move? What do you think is our next move? Can we scale up? Can we democratize? How can we monetize? To answer this, in 2020, our government made an iconic decision and democratized space, as said by Chairman in Space, Dr. Pawan Goenka sir, our visionary leader. ISRO continues to be a beacon of innovation. The game changer is through participation of Bharat's private sector. Today, any organization can execute end-to-end space activity in the country. May it be manufacturing rockets, manufacturing satellites, launching them, operating at stations, disseminating the data, bringing out innovative space applications, etc. All enabled through space reforms. One of the accomplishments to mention is successful Prarambh mission and launch of Vikram rocket by Skyroot on 18th November 2022. Sharing few words on InSpace. Under Department of Space, we have two organizations, ISRO and InSpace. No need to talk about ISRO. InSpace, Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. The primary role of InSpace is to strengthen the private ecosystem along with ISRO and all the stakeholders as enabler, promoter, and authorizer. In short, InSpace is a cornerstone for implementation of space reforms. Let me share quickly few activities, but we have not done anything alone. This is only possible because of the collaborative action between ISRO, private sector, academic institution, and all the stakeholders. Indian Space Policy 2023 is our foundation on which we have built further pillars. InSpace, along with ISRO and other stakeholders, has released decadal vision and strategy. Captain Vishal ji will be speaking more about this. We have a space system design lab at InSpace headquarters, Ahmedabad, with simulation software and testing facilities, which today the early startups can make use of. We can host payloads today on experimental basis on the 4th stage of PSLV and try out our new ideas as said by Chairman ISRO. We also have devised seed fund schemes for early startups, pricing support policies, mentorship support, transfer of ISRO technology to the private sector. Yes, friends, we are digital first organization. Through InSpace digital platform, we have the single window system to apply for authorization or to carry out any space activity. You have to reach out to the single window system. Yes, we are not 100% automated, but the vision is towards that. Skill development, international outreach platform for NGEs are few of the USPs to mention. A new spaceport coming up in Kulashekharapatnam provides you the required launch infrastructure. FDI policy integrates Indian companies into global value chains, providing self-reliance, Atmanirbhar, and collaborative tech development and employment opportunities. Today we have around 200 startups. Investment in 2019 was $6 million, which has gone ahead to $125 million in 2023. Today, you have around 400 private space companies in India working in space sector, and India ranks 5th globally in the largest number of space companies. So let us stop here and let us listen to the views of our esteemed panelists. Captain Vishal ji, coming to you on the aspiration of Indian space economy from $8 billion in 2023 to $44 billion by 2033. Can you take us through the strategic roadmap and pillars on which this vision is built?
Thank you, Vijaya. A pleasure to be here in the Indian Digital Summit. And I think it could not have been a more appropriate time to discuss about space, especially the space data value chain, which I will talk about. So as Vijaya mentioned, India aspires to be a $44 billion space economy in the next 10 years by 2033. Currently, we are at about $8.4 billion. So when we say the total addressable market which we see, and this is a very conservative estimate of $44 billion, it is what we are looking at. Now, what is our vision and mission? India wants to use space industry for the benefit of common citizens, the 1.4 billion people we have, for benefit of enterprises, government institutions, and autonomous entities. Towards this, we already have one of the strongest space agencies in ISRO, as Vijaya mentioned, a very strong space program. How can we translate that into giving impetus to private companies within space tech? The number of companies which are growing in space and the fundings which are flowing is really looking up towards grabbing the total addressable market in future. Now, coming from the vision statement comes what is a mission statement? Our mission statement is how do we achieve $44 billion space economy across the entire space value chain. And I want to spend just half a minute on the space value chain. Typically, the space value chain starts with the upstream, midstream, and downstream. The upstream is where there is satellite manufacturing and launch vehicle manufacturing taking place. Then comes the midstream, which is the ground segments where the data transmission takes place, plus the control of the satellites. And finally, the downstream, which is the most important, which includes Earth observation using satellite imagery, communication using DTH or satellite broadband or satellite telecommunication, and finally navigation. And navigation is another area where the Indian Navik satellite launched by ISRO are actually far more accurate, if you look at it, than what even the GPS or the other satellites are giving in India. So overall, if you look at it, in this entire space value chain, we can see where is the value. And I want to give you some figures. In that $44 billion economy, the largest value of close to about $32 billion is in the downstream. And when we say in downstream, it is Earth observation, navigation, and communication. If you look at the upstream, which is satellite manufacturing and launch vehicles, the total value there is about $8 to $10 billion. The midstream carries the balance value of about $2.5 billion. And this is the market potential which we are seeing in the next 10 years till 2033. Having said that, the takeaway is, and this is where this digital summit is very important, what I mentioned earlier, is the downstream where you have the maximum value. $32 billion of value projected in the next 10 years, is where most of the digitization and digitalization in space data value chain will take place. And within downstream, let me just dive a little deeper. We are looking at Earth observation, which is going to have a value of close to about $8 billion in the next 10 years. And Earth observation or satellite imagery data, which is going to flow down from the satellites, constitutes the main space data value chain. From data acquisition on a satellite to data transmission to the ground station, data aggregation in the processing centers or the aggregator platform, thereafter putting a data value add layer and APIs, and finally giving it to the various sectors. There are close to 16 sectors which space benefits directly, and indirectly there are more than about 10 to 12 more sectors. So the Earth observation is, which is the most lucrative or which is showing the maximum growth. It's showing close to about 28% growth from today to in the next 10 years. The next main part in the downstream is the communication. Now, communication, we already know space is being used for communication, especially the DTH. However, the OTT platforms are taking more prominence in future, and satellite broadband, whether it is SpaceX, Elon Musk SpaceX, or OneWeb, or Kuiper by Amazon, the satellite broadband is something which is again taking a predominance in globally. And likewise in India, we are using high throughput satellites for satellite broadband and telecommunication. So the market in the communication, we are seeing it's showing a growth of about 14 to 15%, because the market is already mature, and that would be about $14 billion in the next 10 years. And the third segment, which is navigation, which is essentially using the Indian constellation of Navik. We have about 8 satellites. We are shifting to L1 band. Till now, we were using the L5 band, which is not many consumer electronics like mobiles have L5. The recent iPhones have started having L1 band also. So with L1 band coming in, again, Navik would be easily available. The Map My India is using Navik, and most of the areas, and I want to mention here, in our study when we did this strategy exercise with ISRO and InSpace, we realized that GPS is meant for temperate regions, which is beyond Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn till the North Pole, because this is where the European countries and United States is located. So GPS was essentially meant for temperate regions of the globe. Whereas Navik, which is launched by ISRO, the Indian constellation, is meant for equatorial regions between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And that is why Navik is far more accurate. In fact, it gives you much better resolution as compared to GPS. And I think that will be the flavor of the day as we go forward. And here we see a market of close to about $9 billion, again, in terms of chipsets, nav chipsets, whatever, direct and induced effect on economy, what Navik will have. And we see that this is going to come in a big way and probably give competition to GPS in India. The capabilities which the country needs is another part which I want to mention in terms of strategic roadmap. Whilst we have goals in Earth observation, navigation, communication, there are certain capabilities and pillars which we have identified. They can be classified into 4 main buckets. First is building platforms, and second is building ecosystems. Third is building, how do you have international outreach? And I think the fourth part is building enablers. Now let me just dive broadly here because paucity of time. The building platform is building Earth observation, navigation, and communication platform. The InSpace is already moving ahead in a public-private partnership of creating a EO platform where a public-private company would both launch satellites as well have ground segments and have a play in the data aggregation. Similarly, building a communication platform and navigation platform. Creating ecosystem is about creating R&D platform, space clusters. In fact, if you read the strategy document, which is there hosted on the InSpace website, it talks also of creating a space marketplace where the buyers and sellers can come together just like an Amazon thing, see use cases, value propositions, and see how space can affect various sectors. A brief mention about sectors which space can affect. It can be from agriculture, marine, insurance, banking, and transport. When I say transport, railways, road, marine, aviation, in addition, other areas like climate services, disaster management. It's so much so that even taxation today, to a large extent, is getting impacted by space. So the use cases are plenty, and we see these use cases currently being used in either Europe or US. Europe has a very strong Copernicus program, and US has a strong Landsat program. So building capabilities in a ecosystem is important for the growth, and that's what the government is investing. And this is a play where most of the digital companies also have. The third is enablement. So enablement in terms of access to funding. There are a lot of VC, angel investors, private equity firms. The funding in India is increasing because they see a use case. The recent FDI policy allows 100% investment in the space sector other than launch vehicles. So across upstream, midstream, and downstream, with 100% FDI, we would expect a lot of play of foreign OEMs in across the space data value chain. And lastly is the international outreach, collaboration across global space agencies. We recently had the Indo-US Tech Council in Delhi, where space is an important area where Indian space tech companies and US space tech companies are collaborating for co-development, co-production, and co-design. So this is broadly the strategic roadmap, as I can put it in with the paucity of time. Suffice to say that the Indian space sector is a sunrise sector offering a lot of attractive propositions. And this is a time where the private ecosystem, the non-government entities can venture into this sector, and every possible help is being given in terms of regulatory or promotional ecosystem, as well as the demand which we can see both in India and for global entities.
Thank you, sir, for your views. Ma'am, transformation in space sector and change in the level of awareness of space tech and application is expected to induce employment opportunities and demand for space talent pool. Can you walk us through our country's preparedness in terms of STEM and space education overall? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's really great that in India, if we think about, then our parents are actually teaching us to go in medical or engineering. But if you look at like what was happening from last 20 years, all our engineers or doctors are actually trying to go to the foreign countries. So the problem here is that the jobs are increasing, and it increasing drastically. From last, I must say, 20, 25, 30 years, it has gone around 79% jobs increased in space sector itself. But where is our pool? Where is our people who can actually do that? Which is in opposite, it was going down. So our pool of people are going down because they are not having that specific skills which are required for this specific sector. So what important is that if we start focusing on the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, it will help our country to grow. It will help our economy to grow. We look into different sectors and we say like how these things are actually improving. What if we start from the school level? What if we start teaching our kids how to actually look outside and what is they see, what they can work, what they can experience is more important. And for that, if we can bring some industry experts, their project to show to our kids will start learning this, they will start getting interested into it. Because nowadays there are lots of different focus where they can choose different sectors. Because they get interested in, they start choosing based on what they are interested in. If we start focusing on these type of things and start bringing those small projects, start showing these small projects to our schools' children, they will start looking at that how these things are taking place. And there they will start developing this interest, where in the future they can go and do things differently. Most important thing when I start feeling like what our college students are doing, what we are doing, and how we can incorporate that knowledge into the real life scenarios, it becomes so important. Then we can start focusing on two major things. One is the communication, two is the collaboration. So if we start collaborating with the industries, if our institutes, our colleges, our schools start collaborating with the industries, and that they can bring the new live projects to the schools, to the colleges, to the universities, our students can have this hands-on experience. They can feel, they can observe, they can see what's happening, they can communicate to each other, and this can bring a huge era of the different atmosphere, which will bring this together and help our economy to grow. Nowadays, if we start looking at the space sector, we talk about space means not just the big yans which we are sending on the moon, but also start thinking about the technology which we are using all over the place. Today, I'm sitting here and probably forecasting in another sector, another place. How it is possible? The drones, the technology, the cameras, these type of things are also part of that space economy, is also actually looking at different things. So like if I talk about drones, drones can actually take the pictures of any crop or farmer's crop and actually can say that where the problem lies and actually go and focus on the problem only and remove it. So this is how the things can actually work. If we can work in pharma sector, if we can work in the industries, in construction sector, you will see huge changes happening. If we focus on these type of things and slowly, slowly build up in that sector, these things can start improving, and our community will start increasing and get benefit out of it. Nowadays, we talk about these 3D printing. So nowadays, we can also see like the big 3D printers are coming, which can actually print the 3D buildings as well. How can we incorporate that type of knowledge in our school-going, college-going, or university-going students? If we can bring those printers in the school where students can actually experience, can see, can feel, can observe, then we can bring that difference in the community. We need to think about that how we can bring this technology to our users. Because once they will absorb it, they will see it, they will actually be able to have that experience of doing it. And once they will have that experience of doing it, they will start having interest in that. So we should not just think about tomorrow. We should think about, say, what will happen after 10 years, what will happen after 20 years. So should have a long-term goal and then work on that. Once being a facilitator, being a teacher, if we start thinking in that type of way, we can say the huge things will start changing. This is what my point is.
Experiential learning. Thank you. One question from audience. We have time for one question. No questions? Can we wrap up? Can we wrap up, sir? Would you like to give one message for the startups working in the downstream?
So I think in the downstream, there is a huge opportunity for the private sector. The question is, what will it take India to produce Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos in space? And I'm sure as the country is shifting its focus from government and public sector to startup in the space industry, this is the time for startup industry to come in. And especially in the downstream, the Earth observation today, the space economy and Earth observation is less than $500,000. We are seeing it grow up to $8 billion in the next 10 years. And Earth observation is all about data mining. Communication, today the communication economy in India is, space-based communication is about 4.2 billion. We see it going to 14 billion plus in the next 10 years. What will it take to get into more communication and have satellite broadband, etc.? And the third, navigation. Today, again, the navigation economy in India is less than $1 billion, and it is, the total addressable market we see in the next 10 years is close to about 9 billion. So these three areas in downstream are the most lucrative, collectively moving to about $32 billion economy only in the downstream. I'm not talking about satellite manufacturing launch vehicle, is where we see a huge playbook and the right to win for the private industry, given a supportive ecosystem, incentivized and promotional policies, and a huge demand which is being created for space-based assets and space-based downstream benefits for the socio-economic benefit of the country. That's all.
Ladies and gentlemen, under the vision Viksit Bharat, let us all commit today to drive Viksit Antariksh. In the airport, I saw a message, building is exciting, while we build it, be part of it. A beautiful message. But for the space sector, we would like to reframe this sentence. Building Viksit Bharat, Viksit Antariksh is exciting. Come join. You are building it. We are not building it. You are building it. How? As an investor, as a startup, as a technologist, with a breakthrough patent, as a promoter, participating in dialogue with the states for manufacturing clusters, employment, affordable space-based services to all. Opportunities are boundless. It is in your own creative thinking. Look at the sky. We are not alone. The whole universe is friendly to us and conspires only to bless all of us who dream, commit, have clear strategy, and courage to execute the dream. Thank you for the opportunity.